you believe that we started recording right in the middle of 2020 with all of the COVID and lockdowns going on around us, unable to meet up? So like many a young gentleman, we turned to the internet for our entertainment. Tried to find a place where we could meet up and talk about the good, the bad, and that time that Stu saw a pelican on the canal. In order to facilitate our dreams of answering all of the big questions in film, and after a few attempts at recording via other methods to various levels of success, we found Zencastr, a super easy web-based one-stop shop for recording. Log in and you're ready to record in a matter of seconds. It doesn't take a tech genius to get high quality audio or video. And on top of that, the one time we have had an issue, the fact that the multi-layered backups are stored locally means it's easily fixed all in browser. There are plenty of tools you need when you start podcasting, so let Zencastr take that headache away, as it offers a place to record, edit and distribute all from one website. Any lazy bones Jones can pick up and play and have studio quality audio or 4K video put out for the world to see when using Zencastr. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code CAGEFIGHTING and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. We want you to have the same easy experiences we do for all our podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. And now, hit the music. Hello and welcome to Cage Fighting. It's your man Andy Gillies here. Hope everybody is doing well in the world.
Hello everyone, we are doing well in the world. Yes we are. The season is back. Getting close to Christmas. We don't care about Halloween. We're out there mere seconds into the episode. We don't care about Halloween. Hello everyone.
I'll come back to Halloween in a second, but we've got Ed with us today. Ed, it's been a couple of months, so it's good to see you again, my friend.
No, yeah, thanks for having me on. Looking forward to it. And yep, can't wait for Christmas. I think we're 18 Mondays away, Stu, I think.
129 days at time
There we
record.
go. So, yeah, and Halloween can take a running jump from me as well.
I have a countdown on my phone and Andy, there you are. Look, see.
I mean, only you, Stu.
No, I have one from 100 days. That's what I do. That's my cut-off.
Jesus, mate. So
He did. That was the point.
I was doing the rota for the rest of the year on what sort of episodes we're putting and stuff. And like Halloween never even crossed my mind. You know, as someone who loves his horror and stuff, Halloween is such a non-event to me. Like I just see it as something you have to get out of the way to get to, you know, the rest of the year and presents.
You know what? We talked about this last time. Halloween is like, it's Poser's horror fest, eh? It's like Valentine's Day. Why do you have to be nice once a year? One day a year? Why can't you just be nice for the rest of the year as well? We don't need it.
Except for Halloween, why can't you be an evil bastard the rest of the year?
Exactly.
Yes, but I think for me, it was just chavs dressing up with bin bags on, asking for a quid. That's what it was growing up around by me. It was like, here's a quid, and you've got a bin bag on. That was it. So you can't buy into that when you're a teenager.
But what did they do if you didn't give them a quid though?
I don't know. I was never fast enough to run off, so I just throw the quid one way and run the other.
It's incredible. It's been a couple of weeks since we last recorded, so have you seen anything on TV, in the cinema, or anything? Ed, anything interesting that you've seen lately?
Do you really want me to talk about Deadpool?
Yeah, because I haven't talked about it either, so yeah.
I won't talk about it, so you two can crack on.
So from a cage fighting point of view, I watched Hitman on your review after your review of it the other day. Loved it. Silly little film, but it is what it is. Great film.
Yeah.
His acting for all of the different hitmen is worth watching just for those scenes alone.
Yeah.
And yeah, a couple of weekends ago, I went to an early showing of Deadpool versus Wolverine, and it's exactly what you want if you like that kind of thing. Leave your brain at the door. Let Ryan Reynolds be Ryan Reynolds times 1,000. And watch Hugh Jackman swear. It was perfect for me. I really enjoyed it. The storyline was poor. There wasn't much of an ending. It didn't really make much sense most of the way through it, but I loved it. regardless.
Yeah, it was. When we get to, I want to have a very difficult conversation with myself about where I want to put this, because from a pure enjoyment point of view, it was a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Like Goldie texted me earlier about sending me a video of the reactions.
Yeah, he sent me that as well.
Yeah. When you obviously know anyway, you don't care who's in it. We're not going to say, because people still haven't seen it. But the reactions to the cameos and certain moments in that film, there was one of them, you can kind of guess which one, that I did kind of little squeak. It was like a squeak and a scream. But I wasn't the only one. I wasn't jumping around like a complete bellend. But I was, when he walked across the screen with a little grey beard, I'm like, yes, this is incredible, because I'd avoided everything beforehand. But yeah, it was exactly like Ed said. It's exactly what you wanted, or what you don't like in Andy's case, which is why the biggest film of the entire year he's never going to see.
My viewing of it was only marred by the fact that a lady 2 rows in front, every time Ryan Reynolds took a breath, pissed herself laughing. And I don't think that's a joke. She laughed at everything. And sometimes they weren't jokes. Sometimes it was just dialogue, and she would still just chuckle and howl. Some of the time she was howling. During the whole dance scene, she was clapping and howling and hooting. It was something else. She did almost spoil it. The only thing she didn't do was get her phone out. I think that would have been it.
Yeah, that's crossing the line. It's one thing to enjoy it. It's another thing to spoil it for other people, isn't it, I think? Bit of a dick move. Stu, have you seen anything else other than Deadpool? Anything else on your list?
Yeah, we talked about Twisters before, didn't we? So so from then I watched Homicide Los Angeles, which is Netflix 5-part series, like Homicide New York.
Okay, right, yeah.
But in LA this time. So exactly the same format, same people. You know exactly what you're getting with that. Bit of murder TV, why not? And then, Borderlands. I knew going in it was going to be awful. We all did. The fact that it's bombed as bad as it has, never seen it, doesn't surprise me, because it is so awful. If it come up and it said directed by Uwe Boll, or Uwe Boll, however you want to say his name, it wouldn't have been a shock.
Oh, that bad? Wow.
Yeah, because and knowing now that it was cut down from an R-rated movie to a PG-13 makes a lot of sense, because it's so shit. And people who was in the cinema with me seem to enjoy it. So it's one of them things. Who is this for? You make a film based on a game, a very certain type of game that's very violent, incredibly violent, and you make it like that. But I know everything's been recast, like how Freddy got fingered. Not Freddy got fingered.
I would rather have seen Freddy got fingered than what you're going to talk about now, though.
Not Nightmare on Elm Street is now a 15, because it's a comedy. It's not a horror film. But this being a PG-13, yeah, it probably would have been a 15 about 20 years ago, but still. But Jamie Lee Curtis is quite funny in it. Jack Black is, for a very small portion of the film, quite funny in it. But everything else, it's just a Guardians rip-off. And the fact that we've had 3 of them films, which were all great, but then we had the Guardians game, which was good as well.
Mm-hmm.
But then you've got this Concord game, which is a Guardians rip-off. We've had other things that have been marvelised with the way that people talk and the characters, and they've just turned Borderlands into a Guardians rip-off, which is not what the game is or was. And I'm no expert in that. That's Matt's department, not me. But it doesn't matter. It wasn't funny. Like, you look at the trailer, like when they're driving through that piss field. The funniest parts of the film are in the trailer.
I was going to say that, Stu. I watched the trailer before Deadpool, and I felt like I didn't need to watch the movie.
Yeah.
The trailer was about 4 minutes long, and I felt like, well, that's going to be all of the best bits. I know all of the characters. I know who's playing what. I'm sure Kevin Hart will probably reference the fact that he's black 5 or 6 times during the movie, because that's what he does in every single film he's ever in. And that's about it.
In a roundabout way, he does, yeah.
Will do. He does in every movie.
But yeah, obviously, I only saw the teaser because of my rule. But even that 2-minute teaser, that was enough. And that is the funny part of the film. I don't, like you said, it must have been bad for me to slate it as much as I did after I came out of seeing it. I mean, so I watch, as everyone knows, I watch a horrendous amount of rubbish, and get enjoyment out of quite a lot of things. But I was not, I wasn't bored. It was like being paralysed. I didn't want to leave because I wanted to see it to the end. But if the power had gone off, I would have been quite content by just walking out and not seeing the rest of it. But yeah, it was so dull.
That's not good, is it? That's not good. In my world, I've actually seen quite a few since we last spoke about Twisters. We've had a couple of secret screenings. Got to see Kneecap, which is based on the Irish rap band. They rap in their native Irish tongue. It was really good fun. Of all of the possibilities that it could have been for the secret screening, that's probably bottom of the list for me. But I'm so glad I saw it. It was great fun. Really enjoyed it. There were a few walkouts because the majority of the film is spoken in Irish, not in English. So there's a lot of subtitles, but it was great. But Michael Fassbender, I'll watch him in anything. He's absolutely outstanding. I mean, I say watch him in anything. I am halfway through Covenant at the moment. Maybe I won't watch him in anything because that's not been good. Cuckoo was the other secret screening that we had, and I really enjoyed that. That's one that it's been on my list for a good few months. It's been a horror that's had a lot of sort of eyes being pushed towards it without it being sort of cracking into the mainstream. So that was quite high on my list. And it delivered. I'd say it's probably one of the best secret screenings that I've actually been to. I really had a good time with Cuckoo. It's out on the 23rd of August to general cinemas. So by the time this podcast goes out, it will be available to see, hopefully at a cinema near you. Trap, I went to see, and I didn't hate it, but I can't say I loved it either. Like, it's a proper film of two halves. I quite enjoyed the first half when he was trapped, quote unquote, in the... So the story is that there's a concert going on, and the concert is a trap to catch the butcher, who's this local serial killer. And when they're in the arena, it was kind of interesting, but it hits a line, and you think, okay, I'm sort of done now. And I realised that line was 50 minutes into the film, and there was still another hour to go. And I thought, oh, okay. And it just sort of petered out a little bit towards the end. And another film that I saw was Alien Romulus, which is someone who doesn't have any real connection to the Alien franchise. I had a great time with. A lot of the TikTokers and reviewers that I've seen who are really into the Alien world didn't seem to enjoy it. But as someone who knows about it but isn't obsessed with it, it was a good summer horror, thriller, blockbuster kind of a film. Yeah, really enjoyed it. I think I'd tell people to go and watch it, but I think if you're heavy on the lore of Alien, you might not get a lot out of it, maybe. I don't know. But it's a casual, yeah, great fun, really enjoyable.
You know that Kneecap?
Yeah.
I mean, that was a trailer before Borderlands, and it was the best part of the night. But he seemed like he nailed that accent again, Fassbender.
Well, he is Irish.
Yeah, he's Irish, isn't he?
So he's Irish-German. Is that what he's?
Yeah.
Austrian?
I think his natural accent is Irish, but it's like quite a quiet Irish, not a heavy brogue. So he does play it up for the cameras, but I don't think that was as much of a stretch as him doing English or American.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah. He was good. He's very much a peripheral character in it, but he's good. He adds legitimacy to the film because it's Michael Fassbender. You'd love it, sure. It's great fun.
I want to see it as soon as I can. I know you mentioned it, but I couldn't remember what it was called. Because you were saying about the Irish thing, and we were talking about that game that's in Gaelic, but in Scottish Gaelic. And then when it started coming up, and it's Irish is a dead language, I thought, this is what he's on about then. And it looked really entertaining.
It is. It's really, really funny, but really poignant as well. Like, it works on both sides of the coin, so it's a home run for me, that kind of a film. Right, so for the main portion of this podcast today, before we get onto Moonstruck, we're going to be doing our top 5 films from the late 80s. Now, originally it was going to be 85 to 89, anything that was released anywhere in the world. But when I looked, it was either going to have to be like a top 20, or we were going to have to find a way to try and get it there. So I thought we'll condense it down, and we'll just do specifically released between 87 and 89. And it can be released anywhere in the world. Like, it doesn't have to be, its first showing was in America. It could have been in America in 86, but we didn't get it till a year later. That's fine. Whatever works, basically, on this one. Stu, you said you had a real tough time cutting this list down. Is this the most difficult one we've had, do you think?
Easily. And how many of these have we done now? A good 10 easily.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head. So just looking at, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8 from 87. 1, 6, 7, 10 from 88. And 8 from 89.
That's a whole list for you, Stu. That really is.
And that was condensed as well. There was other things that wasn't even on there. And I was sitting there in between games today, and I thought, I have no idea what I'm going to do. And I thought, no, I'm just going to go from enjoyment again. So there we are.
I've been back and forth on, especially the number one. Like, I knew sort of what was going to be in there. There's probably 6 films I knew were going to be in there. And it was just figuring out where and which one was going to be the one to drop out. Ed, did you have trouble with this one?
I did. Most of mine are from 1988, bizarrely. And I with you, Stu, I went down enjoyment factor only, apart from my number one, where I think I channeled my inner Andre a little. went for more of an actual film rather than just ones that I enjoy. And it's probably a good job we didn't do from 1985 onwards, because if you get me started talking on Back to the Future, I'd need my own episode, and you guys could probably go to bed and come back tomorrow and I'd still be going. So,
well, that's a power of love.
See, 86 would have been the year for me, because Little Shop of Horrors was released that year, which is like probably my top 5 all-time greatest film. And you've got Labyrinth was in there. And the more I was looking, I was like, 86 could have easily been a top 10 on its own for me. Nothing else would have got a look in from that decade, I don't think. So, yeah, the 80s. I mean, you said to me, Ed, when we were chatting, that it's amazing how much the 80s seems to have stacked up. And I'm kind of...
Doubled up.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to doing like a 90s version of this, to see if the 90s holds up as well as the 80s. And I feel a big part of it is the technology around it, because in the 90s, I feel like technology advanced so quickly during the 90s compared to the 80s and probably post-90s that the film sort of moved with the technology a little bit. But once you get into the noughties, and especially the teens and now 20s, technology can sort of draw things back a little bit. I feel like the death of the horror film sort of came with the mobile phone. They had to find ways to get away from mobile technology. And I feel that's why I feel a bit of a kinship with the 80s, because there was no mobile technology to really have to get away from. And now they just try and get away from it immediately, like Bodies from a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Catch it in a storm, because then you can't call the police. Like, you need to find that way. And that feels very 80s in its style almost, I feel.
It was a great film.
The Rise of the Guardian, I loved it. The Rise of the Guardians, like you mentioned earlier, Stu, that's very much neon colours, 80s vibes. And I feel like that's come back a bit. So it does feel like we've almost come full circle a little bit with the 80s now.
Yeah. When you talk about effects and stuff like that, just a shout out to the Corridor Crew YouTube channel, which is, I've mentioned it before. They did one today on Godzilla -1, and how they managed to do it on such a short budget. Well, it was not even a short budget; it was minute, wasn't it? And it's so simple, yet so effective.
Mm.
Like when it looked like they had a camera gimbal, like for the when on the boats and it's going up and down. They programmed the camera gimbal to do the inverse of what a natural boat would move like. So they were acting like they were at sea. And Easy.
So work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, 100%. And like to go back to like my aliens discussion, just so I watched Romulus, which is very much practical CGI. I watched Aliens for the first time a couple of weeks ago, again, heavily practical effects. But having watched Prometheus and half of Covenant now, which are so heavy with CGI, and they look ass, like they look dreadful in comparison. So it makes a world of difference, I think, having practical versus computer generated. If you don't get computer generation correct, it spoils the film.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's finding that line, is it, with a lot of these movies, I think. So, as normal, we'll do 5 to 2 honourable mentions, and then we'll give our number 1 films of the late 80s. I'll go first. Stu, Ed, I'll lucky go round in that fashion until... Right, so my first film, and the reason this is coming in at number 5 is because this is a film I only watched for the first time a few weeks ago. But When Harry Met Sally is an absolute joy of a movie to watch. Not really the kind of film I thought I would say that about. The reason it's quite trope heavy is because it invented the tropes of the romantic comedy. Everything you see in any romantic comedy now, they have taken shamelessly from When Harry Met Sally. It's such a wonderful performance, so much heart, and just the comedy in it was wonderful. And I've said on Twitter that one thing I love when I watch a comedy is when one person tells a joke, the other person in the scene laughs. It is such an unnatural thing when someone says a funny quip and everyone else is stony-faced, like, who's that joke for? Because there's no audience, effectively. You're a person there, so you're telling a joke to your friends. And it always really takes me out of a movie, especially in comedies when they do that, and nobody reacts because it's just weird. And the amount of times they did that in this film where Harry would tell a joke and Sally would laugh in response to him. Like, this is how you make a film. This is genuine. It felt so real and so beautiful. And I fucking bawled my eyes out at the end. That scene, I know that speech from Scrubs because when Turk has to write his vows to Carla when they get married, he doesn't know what to write, so Carla's brother writes his vows for him. And he writes that speech from When Harry Met Sally. So I got that immediate recognition and I laughed, and it was so beautiful and so emotional. I cried to see it. I thought, this is such a wonderful movie. I had such a great time. This film is probably deserving to be higher in the list. The only reason it isn't is because I've only watched it recently, and I would quite like to visit it in 6-12 months' time and see how I still feel about it at that point. That's the only reason it's coming in at 5, because I think it was brilliant. Absolutely beautiful.
Was you sitting there waiting for that scene, though?
I'd completely forgot about it. Oh, the scene in the diner?
The diner, Cat's Diner.
Well, yeah, because when that happened, I then sent a picture to Casey, and I was like, we've been there, because we ate there earlier this year, so it was kind of good to see it. And it looks exactly the same, like it hasn't changed at all in there, only it's just busy in there now. So it was really cool to see it, but I'd sort of forgot about it. And even though I've seen that scene a million times without having seen the film, I still laughed when the old woman said, I'll have what she's having. Like, that's the mark of a comedy, that I know the punchline and I still laughed at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't seen it for a long, long time. I mean, thankfully, I watched it before it became a thing, like on Dennis Norden shows and stuff like that. There's one for the kids. There's a
deep cut in it.
I thought of Dennis Norden for years. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's probably, I'm going to write it down there and have a rewatch of this, because it has been a long, long time. But yeah, I completely forgot about it. It probably should be on my list as well, but it never crossed my mind.
No, all mine. It's a real trendsetter, wasn't it? That setup, like you said, Andy, the rom-coms from now till forever will always have some kind of link back to, can boys and girls be friends? will there always be something else to it, you know? And Billy Crystal's brilliant in everything as well, to be honest. So I'd watch him in most things as well, and just at least give it a go with him in it.
Yeah, completely agree. Passing over to you, Stu, but yours is a clash for later. Would you like to announce what your number 5 is, and then Ed can give his?
Talking about films that you wouldn't think I'd put on lists. My number 5 is Rain Man, but it features later, so we'll pass it on.
Ed?
Yeah, so my number 5, again, remember, this is all on enjoyment. It's Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Yes.
It's probably the second best in the trilogy, but it's, I think, close, because the first one is epic. And it stopped at this film. There was been no other films after it.
That is correct.
Everything else after this is, I don't know, Indian Jones or something like that. We don't need to talk about the other two. So it's a great film. You've got the best natural born baddies, like there was in the first one, the Nazis. You have to hate them, therefore they're brilliant baddies. You've got enough lore in there for it to be interesting. You've got a bit of Da Vinci Code in there, the searching for the Holy Grail. You've got the epic scene at the end with him going through all of the puzzles. You know, it's like Tomb Raider. It's everything you want in a city action film plus Sean Connery and River Phoenix. Opening scenes are brilliant. River Phoenix is phenomenal, and you realise what a loss of a talent he was.
Yeah.
And I can never get past this point now, but it wasn't supposed to be Harrison Ford. The original casting for Indiana Jones was Tom Selleck, and I can't get past Indiana Jones with a moustache. I just can't. And some kind of Hawaiian shirt, or the bloke from Friends. So, it's a wonderful, it's a romp of a movie, isn't it? And it's brilliant. And, you know, there's laughs a minute. It's brilliant. And you've got the scary thing at the end with the bloke turning into a skull, which as a kid traumatized me, but I still watched it all the time, even though I knew that part was coming up. So, yeah, just a great film, great round off of the trilogy. Pulled it back from the second one being a bit iffy, and back to the play. He played the hits. It even brought who's the guy that plays Indy's friend? Who plays the African guy? Yeah, that's him. Yeah, even brings him back for another go around. It's just brilliant. Yeah,
it doesn't get said enough. The Temple of Doom's are very good. People think that film, because it's part of the original trilogy. I'm not saying the stupid fourth one is better than it before people start. But I think the last one is better than Temple of Doom. Said that at the time. I really enjoyed the last one.
It's okay. It was about 20 minutes longer than it needed to be.
What with the end?
Yeah, but they could have just cooked it off when he got on the plane and I'd been fine.
The Temple of Doom is just Steven Spielberg's wife screaming. The opening scene's brilliant, and you've got the kid out of Goonies in it, and Data, he's great. But then, yeah, it just descends into madness, doesn't it? After that, but Last Crusade it's almost as good as the first one, and the first one will probably be my top 10 of films for me. So that's high praise. It can't get much higher for me.
Yeah, I love Last Crusade. I think we did an episode where it was sequels better than originals, and it's rare that a number 2 is better than a number 1, but a number 3 being better than a number 1 is almost unheard of. And I think this is probably as close as we're ever going to get to it. Truly outstanding film. And in my head, whenever I see Matt Guy Jr. talking to Matt Guy Sr. on Twitter, I want to send the gif of Chuck Connery saying Junior every time.
Junior.
Yeah, I don't know why, but in my head, whenever I talk to Matt Guy, I always feel like saying Junior. Don't know why, but yes.
13 years of football ramble, that's why.
Yeah. Yes, it's Marcus Speller. It's Marcus Speller saying Junior all the time. But I spend most of my next 2 weeks after ever watching it just always going, we call the dog Indiana. That's all I ever say for about 2 weeks after it.
Outstanding. Right, my number 4. It's not the best film in the world, and it's not the best film of its series, but the first Child's Play movie is the reason I am obsessed with horror. I don't think I would be into horror if it wasn't for Child's Play, if I'm being perfectly honest. I was off ill with appendicitis at school, and I said on the podcast before, my mom used to work at the local spa. So they always used to send me videos and stuff to watch because I had nothing else to do. So, and ended up getting Child's Play. And I remember my mom being like, no, just remember, it's not real. And when anything bad happens, just laugh because it's not scary. And I think she was scared of what I was going to see and how I was going to react. So then, as a kid in my mind, seeing this little doll jump up and smash a woman in the face with a hammer, I just laughed at it. And I've sort of taken that on now, 41 years old, still laughing at this kind of nonsense that happens. And yeah, I think Child's Play 2 is probably a better film, if I'm being perfectly honest. And the new TV series is wonderful, but I think the fact that we are now 30-odd years later, 35 years later, and this is still being done, and we've had a remake of the film, and people are still interested in Chucky, that it has got legs. It's not the best in the world. It's not the best horror series that's ever been made, but there is something about this that I think a lot of people have taken to their heart. And I definitely was one of them. It's a film I love to this very day. I owe it a lot, I feel.
It all makes a lot of sense now, doesn't it? People say that as well, that your soul is contained within your appendix, and since yours has been gone since you were a child, it all comes together. Yeah, I love Child's Play. I really should watch that series, shouldn't I? I think I probably would enjoy it.
Good.
But you say that about, oh yeah, your mum's saying that to you. I mean, I forgot to mention it at the start where I'd watched The Conjuring for the first time, but with my 13-year-old son because he wanted to watch it. I thought, okay, fine. If you can't sleep, this is completely on you. I have no say in this. This is your choice. I thought, well, yeah, he's now 5'7", ridiculously. So he's sitting there in his little chair watching it, and with the Annabelle doll in the corner, I thought, oh yeah, this reminds me of something. I've only watched that one so far. I haven't watched the second one. I'm going to watch that this week. But yeah, subjecting children to horror films seems to be, it's handed down from generation to generation, isn't it? I mean, we were talking about The Fly before with me. When I watched that at 7, that was too young. I think that kind of film, what was you, probably about 11-ish, 11, 12 when you watched Child's Play first time?
Something like that, possibly. Yeah. I think it was 11. I think it was year 7 at school.
Yeah, so at secondary school, that's prime age.
Mm.
Yeah, it's very silly, fun film. If you watch it.
I'm not seeing it. I'm from the Matt Guy school of no horror.
It's not hot. It's not scary at all. It's stupid. It's a stupid film.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Once you get to the Seed of Chucky, the Bride of Chucky, they just become flat out comedies. They're not horror at all. This does have a little bit more horror to it than your average, but there's probably as much comedy as there is horror, if I'm on. What was the first horror film that you saw, Ed? Or have you just avoided it essentially?
It would have been Scream, probably, and that's barely horror anyway. So no, there isn't many.
Have you watched any other of the Scream films, or did you stop at one?
No, Scream 1, 2 and 3. Watch those. I think that's it. After that, you go into zombie movies, and even then, I don't really watch them, other than Shaun of the Dead, which is a masterpiece. But everything else, no.
Just wait for Long Legs. And what's that?
100 million that's made at the box office. I think it's the most successful indie film of the year. And it deserves it. I'm so pleased. It's been a wonderful movie. Brilliant. Stu, number 4, please.
Yeah, this was another one of these. It could have been one or two films. It could have been Lethal Weapon 2, which is better than the first, or this one, which is Beverly Hills Cop 2, which is better than the first. And so, out of 4 films, this is the one that takes its place on this list because I haven't seen Axel F yet. Some people love it, some people despise it. I don't know. I'm in preparation for that. I watched them again, and I watched number 2 on Thursday. That's why it's fresh in my mind. What a great film that is.
Yeah.
Both of them at their peak. And yeah, the whole alphabet thing, it's a bit silly. But it's a silly film. It's as pure 80s you could possibly get.
Mm.
And for that reason, it's like a time capsule of happiness. When things were made properly. And I mean, I'm amazed XLF's even been made, let alone been released. But yeah, I love them films. And the whole 48 Hours as well, we could talk about them at a different time. Not as good as these. Beverly Hills Cop I love that trilogy. I mean, the third one's... It's the third one a PG-13? Is it?
Yes. If I remember rightly, they really sort of ratcheted it down to a family-friendly affair for the
Yeah, it didn't work.
That's the one in the theme park, isn't it? The third one.
It didn't work at all. It didn't have the same vibe at all, the third one, from memory. But yeah, Beverly Hills Cop 2 is an absolute classic.
I've got to admit, I haven't seen these since the 90s. It's been so long that I couldn't tell you. I vaguely remember the alphabet being the link in the film, and I remember the third one being in a theme park. But I can't remember enough about it to really say anything. The only thing I will say is that period of Eddie Murphy was just gold. Everything he touched was fantastic. And I would watch any 80s, early 90s Eddie Murphy. It's always worth a watch, just for his performance.
Anything pre-Dr. Dolittle, right? That's when he started to go Disney Channel, Logan Paul, Christian Aguilera, all those, that kind of, the really saccharine stuff. But this is, and I first watched this because I'm randomly a Detroit Lions fan, and he had a Detroit Lions bomber jacket. So that was the main reason I watched it. Got it from the video store because that was on the front.
So you had your success, almost.
Oh, it's a very passing. It's just my uncle went to Detroit once for work and came back with the Lions stuff, and that was all it took at the age of like 10. And I only look out for it on a Sunday. I don't watch it really.
Get back in. It draws you in. You start biting.
That's why I've not done it. That's why I've not done it.
Ed, what's your number 4, please? No, I'm annoyed about this that I didn't put it on my list, but yeah.
So number 4, groundbreaking then and now. When we're talking about effects, it's Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It's a brilliant film, brilliant concept. The Muppet one a few years ago, they tried to kind of do something similar, didn't they? When they kind of did a murder mystery thing with Muppets and didn't quite hit the high notes, did it? And I always wondered if I was biased towards this because it's directed by the same people as Back to the Future, isn't it? It's Zemeckis, and it's got that feel to it. But it's brilliant, and it's so well put together. And talking about CGI and cell drawings and everything else, to be able to do it, and for I've forgotten his name now, I've even written it down. Who plays the detective? The
Hoskins.
Bob Hoskins. For him to react to nothing and to really truly to nothing is brilliant. Just people reading off screen, and it's even the story at the end. It's a twist, isn't it? With Christopher Lloyd, and again another melting face. So maybe I've got to think. Maybe that's what me and 80s films are. It's things at the end with people's face melting, but it's just incredibly clever, and probably hasn't been beaten really for mixing genres like that, having cartoons with people. I know there was is it Fred Astaire dances with, or Bugs Bunny or something in the 50s, or there's I know that was for one little scene, wasn't it? Rather than this is the whole movie. He's reacting to Warner Brothers drawn people. It's incredibly clever, incredibly funny, and Jessica Rabbit alone is worth it.
We can say all we want. Everyone has wanked over that cartoon over there. Say what everyone thinks. Bed Knobs and Broomsticks is probably the earliest one I can think of.
Yeah,
a mix of both. But Bob Hoskins, you say that acting to nothing. Yeah, because it would never have been done before. Not to that level, anyway.
I don't think Angela Lansbury's got the same effect as Jessica Rabbit either for Bed Knobs and Broomsticks.
Where you watch Murder, She Wrote after a pub crawl.
So, for me, I think Bob Hoskins in that. I'm amazed that he wasn't Oscar nominated.
Yeah, I did Google that and I was surprised.
Yeah. I'm just looking at it now because I was trying to figure out who won it, but I mean, it'll come up in a little bit because obviously it's Dustin Hoffman, Rain Man, so we will discuss that when we get to it. But looking at the others, Gene Hackman in Mississippi Burning, Tom Hanks, Big, Edward James Olmos, it's Stand and Deliver. Max von Sydow in Pele the Conqueror. I could quite easily see Bob Hoskins being in that list, if I'm being perfectly honest. See Mississippi Burning and Big. Performances better than both of those, potentially.
Is it Oscar snobbery, maybe, that it's cartoon-based?
Popular.
I think it is. I can't knock Dustin Hoffman, and we'll talk about it in a little bit. I can't knock that as the winner, but I do think he deserves a bit of love for that. Yeah, great film. And again, one of the most iconic horror moments in any film ever, when he puts the shoe in the dip. That squeal will remain with me for the rest of my life. It is absolutely terrifying. When he pops up at the end with his eyes bulging when he becomes cartoon, and terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. And I watched it again 3 years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and it still holds up. It's still a really good, fun, you said it earlier, it's a romp of a movie. And then this is what this is as well. Yeah, great caper. Loved it. So we're moving on to my number 3, which is due to come up in a moment, so we will skip over it. My number 3 is Die Hard. Stu, your number 3.
What do you do when you've got a problem with crime? We talked about it before a few weeks ago. We talked about it all the time. RoboCop is class. It will remain perfect forever. And now the game is finally finished. Almost a year later, I can finally play it now. Instead of the game being the third in the proper trilogy, because no one counts the third film. Second one is all right, but the first one is still the director's cut. I add, is an absolute classic. We talk about effects that stand up. Some of them in RoboCop very much do not. But on the Blu-ray, like I said at the time when I watched it again in preparation for playing the game last year, I'm sure they've done something to it because it looks better than it did before. And I think that maybe that's just the transfer. Maybe it's because I've watched it so many times, my brain's filling bits in with the Ed 209 stop motion. The bit falling out the window is still ridiculous. And these arms are all out of proportion. It's terrible. But it's probably, especially with all the riot nonsense that happened a few weeks ago, it's probably more poignant now than it was 30 odd years ago. It's the things that they were talking about in that film have happened.
Yeah,
it's mad for something that's so stupid and what is a satire at the end of the day, a sci-fi satire albeit, but a satire nonetheless. It still holds up, and it's probably more important now than ever. Just an absolute classic of any genre.
Speaking of being too young, I have a 10-year-old, an auntie who's 10 years older than me, and I watched the opening scene of RoboCop far too early as a young boy, and that took a while to get to sleep after just seeing that one scene. I mean, I powered through and watched the whole movie, but it was that one, that scene stuck with me.
This was the first 18-rated film I ever saw, and I would have been 7?
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah. I don't think I was much older. Yeah, I don't even think she was old enough to watch it herself.
Yeah, it's so many images from both of the first two films. I think I've seen I can't even remember because you get kind of morph into one, don't they? Yeah, I vaguely remember bits, and yeah, but so many memories. The stuff with the drugs and the spinal cord, the bit where he punches him with the spike coming out of his hand at the end, that sort of sticks in my memory. There's so many just like one-off scenes here and there that stick. When he shoots the guy through the woman's dress into his bollocks, like that's one of the most amazing bits of cinema ever. It really scratches that child inside of me that loves dumb shit, and it's great fun. And as you said, you don't realise it at the time because there's lots of dumb shit and big loud noises, but it's also about a fascistic state and a fascistic police force and unrule on the streets. Like, there is actually meaning behind the madness on this one. Something that I absolutely didn't appreciate then, but now it would mean so much more, I think.
And I would say as well, if you love that film, there is a 4-part documentary series called RoboDoc that again I mentioned last year. It is. So let's see. Look, it's so the 4 parts: 1 hour 8 minutes, 1 hour 18 minutes, 1 hour 9 minutes, 1 hour 24 minutes. It is an epic. The making of this is just the first film.
Outstanding.
I think you're talking.
I need to check that.
Yeah, it's 6 hours. RoboDoc. It's available everywhere. But I watched it last year after I watched the film again for the millionth time, and they've got everyone who's still alive, including Peter Weller being a bellend again. Everyone's in it.
Outstanding. I'm making a note of that. Lovely. Ed, where are we? Number 3.
Yeah, number 3 for me is briefly just been mentioned. It's Big. Tom Hanks playing the child. I think he was an Oscar nominee for this, and I think, although I think Hoskins is a better and harder performance, playing a 13-year-old or 12-year-old at the age of 32 and playing it so well. I think it's a great film. Obviously, you suspend disbelief, obviously a kid becoming an adult, but it kind of tackles a lot of things as well, doesn't it? As a kid, all you want to be is a grown-up, isn't it? You want to set your own bedtime, you want to do what you want to earn money, and then you realise that if you get it too soon, like he did, he had no idea what to do with himself, did he? He obviously, for comic effect, gets a high-powered job and gets bunk beds and does all the things that you think you ever wanted to do as a kid. You know, it's got the shimmy, shimmy Cocoa Puff. That scene alone is worth making you sit through it again. And it a bit like what you talked about with When Harry Met Sally, this kind of has gone into the consciousness, isn't it? With like the Zoltar machine, that's now ripped off in so many different places. Whether or not we have some problems with the fact that she was still kind of attracted to him, even though when she ran 12-year-old. But if anyone can sit through Dirty Dancing and think that 60-year-old girl should be with 40-year-old Patrick Swayze, then yeah, maybe we shouldn't. But I think there's a commitment to the bit from Tom Hanks. I think a bit like the namesake of this podcast, Nicolas Cage. I think Tom Hanks always gives his all, even when it's not great films. Whether or not you like him or not, it balls out every single time, isn't it? And I think he does that in this. He definitely is a believable 13-year-old in a 30-year-old's body. I think it's a great film. And again, my list is based on enjoyment, and this again is one that I watched as a adolescent, and then or even before then, sort of like from the age of 10 onwards. Like this was on the rotation at Christmas and stuff, wasn't it? It used to be on ITV with the brains and everything. You'd sit through it and watch it. I think it's a great film.
Yeah, it was. But it was always that and Turner and Hooch. They were always on at the same time.
Great, yeah.
I mentioned this the other day to someone because we were talking about Freakier Friday and how they've managed to get Lindsay Lohan back, who's amazingly not dead, for the and I was like, oh yeah, but I said, well, what's Freaky Friday? I went, what? Have you not seen Freaky? Have you not seen Big? And they're like, what is Big? Like, oh, get out!
Wow,
these kids. But so I mentioning Big to myself, I thought, oh, okay, there might be one to watch soon. And then lo and behold, days later, gets mentioned again. Wonderful film.
I think, like I was just saying about Eddie Murphy had that gold period. I think that Tom Hanks was the flip side of that coin. You had Eddie, who was doing probably the more mature, like the late teens, early 20s kind of comedy. Whereas I think that Tom Hanks was doing a bit more of a bit of an all-rounder kind of performance at this point. And Big is very much one of those absolute classics. You put it in there with something like, you've got The Money Pit, Dragnet was fantastic, The Burbs, Turner and Hooch. This period of Tom Hanks is hands down excellent. I said on this podcast, I don't particularly find most of his stuff now to be all that interesting, because there is a Tom Hanks performance that he gives in pretty much everything. But that period of time, I will give any of that a watch, because he is fantastic in it. And this is such a great film. There was a TikTok that I think I put it in the Cage Fighting group chat, and it was Hannah Waddingham interviewing Tom Hanks. And she asked him if they could do the song. And they both did that song together. And you think, well, this interview is done 30 plus years later, and he still remembers it completely off the bat. Like, it wasn't pre-arranged with her to do it. And he just knew it. And I thought, that is incredible. That shows the level that he holds that film. A man who's had the career he has had, that still holds a place in his heart that he can recite all that. I'm just so impressed. Yeah, Big is just a wonderful, wonderful film. So, number 2 for me is the same as yours, Stu. So there's no point in me jumping over it. But Stu, announce what our number 2 is, please.
Do the Right Thing. Again, very more poignant for the times we live in. Yet again, I hadn't seen it until 3 years ago. 2 or 3 years ago, like when we started doing this, and I'd listened to it because it'd been mentioned on Knockback, the Last Stand podcast, and no idea who Spike Lee was, no idea any of his work. Well, I'd seen some of them, but I didn't know it was him or what he was. So I went into it not knowing very much about it. Never heard of it before, never heard anyone even mention it before, until obviously he had. And then I mentioned it on the podcast, yeah, Spike Lee. Of course I did watch it. And it is an absolute masterpiece, which again, even though we, and our millions of listeners, still no one talks about. Years later, and it's probably a bit too on the nose to be talked about, really, and get shown on telly, which I'd be maybe Sky Cinema in the 2000s, late at night. But yeah, an absolute masterpiece, maybe an overstatement in a way.
No, I think that
it is. It's Spike Lee. It's Spike Lee. Most of Spike Lee stuff is at least thought provoking to that, but this is. I actually completely overlooked this. It should be on my list.
But it's not about anything, but it's about everything.
Yeah.
I love Spike Lee. As a director, as a writer, and just as a person, he's one of my favourites in all 3 of those categories. You see him in interviews, and he's the most personable, likeable person. You just want him to succeed because how much a nice guy he is. And I don't think I saw this film until after the Black Klansman film, which he won the Oscar for. So it was like, 2018, 19, so fairly recently. You said it's a masterpiece, and that's exactly what this film is. I'm a big fan of John Turturro, who's in this movie, and he gives a hell of a performance. And to be fair, he always does. Like, he's one of those who always knocks it out of the park. Most people probably don't even know who John Turturro is.
Yeah.
You'll know his face, but I bet you probably wouldn't know his name. He plays Jesus in The Big Lebowski. That's probably his most iconic role, even though he's in it for like 2 minutes. Like, he doesn't have the biggest of roles in it, but that's what you know him from. But everything he does with gusto. He does everything balls out, and I really like that about John Turturro. He's outstanding, and he's excellent in this film. He was such an arsehole. He played it to perfection.
He was in the Batman?
Yeah, he was in Batman. He's done a bit more now. So, like, he's done... he was in Transformers as well. He was the CIA, FBI dude in Transformers. Yeah. He was excellent in a film called Rounders with Matt Damon and Ed Norton, I think. But he's always there. He's always a supporting actor. But he's always the best thing on screen whenever you see him. I would fully recommend a show called... I think it's called The Night Of with Riz Ahmed. And... the guy from The Wire, Kenneth something Williams? Omar in The Wire.
Yeah, I don't know his name.
I can't remember his... Yeah. They're both in it. The Night Of, HBO, 5 episodes. Excellent, excellent show.
And Severance.
Recommend. And Severance, yeah. Like, anything with John Turturro, watch it. If you see his name, watch it, because he's always that good in everything. But yeah, I love Do the Right Thing. As you say, it's more poignant now than ever, off the back of weeks of riots based on race issues. This speaks louder now than it did 35 years ago, which is a damning indictment of society, that we haven't moved on and that we're still experiencing this shit now. What an incredible, incredible movie. Yeah, love it. Absolutely love this movie. Ed, on to your number 2, which I think... Oh, yeah, so that is also to come in a moment, so we'll skip over it. But would you like to announce your number 2, please?
Yeah, it is Die Hard.
Super. Right, honourable mentions. I've got 5 honourable mentions, but I'll be quick. Bigfoot and the Hendersons. This was the first film I saw at the cinema. I cried my eyes out when they made him go away.
Run.
Yeah, when they was like, you need to leave us.
Yeah.
I was bawling my eyes out to the point that the guy in front apparently turned round and said, "Don't worry, he comes back." Like, my mum always reminds me of this. So, yeah, that does hold a place in my heart, just for that story alone. All Dogs Go to Heaven. I watched this again for the first time probably since it was at the cinema. I watched it a couple of years ago.
Sad.
At the end of the film, when the dog Charlie, is it Burt Reynolds or Tom Selleck? Burt Reynolds, isn't he? He's the voice.
They're interchangeable.
Yeah. At the end of the film, he's leaving the little girl. It is his time to go to heaven, so to speak. In real life, the girl, Judith Barcy, I think her name was, she'd recorded all of her lines before her father murdered her and her mother. That scene with the goodbye was recorded after she had been murdered. So the emotions that were on screen or in the voice, in the ether when you was watching it, were real. And for that scene alone, like, it's worth watching, but it gets you. It is such an emotional film. For a kid's animated movie, it gets you, really does. And I've got 3 TV series which I think are why I am the way I am. The Simpsons, Red Dwarf, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. My comedy and everything I love very much comes from those 3 things, which all started in the late 80s. So that's my honourable mentions. Stu?
There's things on here on mine. I'm absolutely astonished that you never mentioned. Obviously, you're not going to mention Full Metal Jacket because it's a war film.
I like that. It's a good film. I saw it when I did film studies at uni. So I got to see it on the big screen. Yeah, I really like that. I like Kubrick. So, yeah.
So we starting to establish here, every time you watch a war film, you actually enjoy it.
I know. I just feel like I don't like it. But I do tend to like these films.
Now, Andre mentioned it, Planes, Trains and Automobiles, or Uncle Buck. Astonishing.
I do love Uncle Buck. Is that late 80s? I thought it was...
Yeah, it's 80,
Yeah, 18. Yeah.
Oh, right.
88 or 89. It was almost on my list.
Yeah, that should probably be in there.
I mean, Beetlejuice, because obviously it's out soon again. I know you don't like it, but there. Ed's already non-state Dirty Dancing, so we can't mention that. Major League, I'm guessing that's a bit too niche for you.
No, I enjoyed that. I remember that one. Madonna in one of her rare decent roles, yeah.
Bill Moranis as well, on Shrunk the Kids, not mentioned.
What?
Was that the 80s?
Yeah. 89.
I'll bring my surprise went up a few octaves there. That was... I could have sworn that was 90s. No way.
And, of course, Scrooged.
Yes, like one of the best Christmas films ever made.
Yeah.
But not the best Christmas film ever made. Coming soon.
We'll talk about it in a minute. Ed, honourable mentions, mate.
So I've got, all the ones you mentioned would have been on my list. Talking of physical effects, I think Red Dwarf was great at that. And it got crap when they brought in CGI later on. But yeah, all of those. But Thundercats for me was huge.
Thunder.
I was obsessed with that as a kid. In fact, I was at my parents threw out the dustbin, the old dustbin I had of all of my figures the other day that was just in the alleyway by the house. And I was like, what's this doing out here? It's all my stuff, and they're absolutely ruined. And I was genuinely knocked off for about 2 weeks with them for doing that. But Back to the Future 2, it gets an honourable mention. Very clever. It's not the best of the 3. It's probably the 3rd for me. But I think it's probably the cleverest, but it goes on a bit. But it's still a very, very good movie. And I think for me, the biggest honourable mention, talking of TV, is Blackadder Goes Forth, which is probably my favourite comedy series. Just those 8 episodes or 7 episodes. Each one of them is magnificent. Each one of them is hilarious, poignant. The ending is probably the best ending to any TV show that I've seen. I love the ending, and probably it's between that and Phoenix Nights, which I think tells to me of where my comedy is. It's either growing up and go to the club in Wednesbury with my grandparents and my parents, or my love of history, and Blackadder Goes Forth just hits that perfectly. And I think that's probably my favourite comedy. It's very, very clever, very funny, and nearly every episode is iconic.
So this yet again proves my point why Andy don't like Phoenix Nights. He didn't experience Clubland.
Really? You didn't do bingo?
No, God, no.
I used to do bingo with spent tickets. They used to just give me them I think that was babysitting in the early 90s. You sit here with a dobber and hope you don't win. Hope you don't win. Yeah.
Then you have to call out if you win.
Yeah.
It's the anxiety of it all. Yeah, I played bingo on Friday night, funny enough.
Yeah.
After the Man United Fulham game, I went down the Legion with Dad, as you do. Like I said to you before, I've had a weekend of just being pissed. But went down the Legion with Dad, had a gallon. And after the match, went in the big room and he had a game in bingo. It was 140 quid prize pot. Didn't win. Someone won a ham. So there we are.
One of my I still try and use it wherever I can. Whenever bad luck happens, my nan looked at me once when I was about 7 or 8 and said, if I was on my own here playing bingo, they'd call the alphabet. That's how much luck I have. And I love that now. Anytime there's some kind of bad luck happens, I always trot out that line. I love it. No, Clubland was my life.
Yeah, Clubland never dies.
Question about Thundercats for you. Did you watch well, they've done 2 recent reboots of it. There's one in 2011, which I think was pitched at a slightly older audience. And then there was one a couple of years later that was very, very young. Yeah. Have you watched either of those 2?
Both of them. The one pitched at the younger ones was like a rip-off of Teen Titans Go, that kind of ilk.
Yeah.
And it wasn't very good. The other one was a slightly edgier version of the 80s, early 90s comic and cartoon. Again, all the stories are pretty much exactly beat for beat. So it was just probably slightly better. Well, whether or not you claim it's better animation, better drawings in terms of, just the things have look better now.
It was shinier, wasn't it?
Yeah. But it was what we had as kids wrapped up in a neat new package. Didn't impress me overly, but like I said, I was obsessed with those to the point where taping over things to make sure I had them from TV on a Saturday afternoon, Saturday morning kind of thing. So I was obsessed with them, but I didn't mind. I think the one that was pitched at the slightly older kids, that was edgier and a bit better, but it was still very Pokemon-y kind of style of over-animated, over-exaggerated kind of nonsense.
I liked it in that it had a full season arc rather than it being 22 minutes of an episode. Yeah, I quite liked that, and it was okay. I kind of wish it got a second season just to complete the story. That's the only thing. It finishes halfway through where they're going. The other thing I was going to mention as well, Dynamite Entertainment, the comic company, they're currently doing a Thundercats comic book series. And there's a Chitara spin-off at the moment. I bought the first few issues of the main series, and it's all right. I think if you're a big fan, you'd probably get more out of it than I did personally. But the actual artwork in it's really nicely done. So yeah, that's worth a check out if you need something.
Well, we're talking about animated stuff, not related to anything else, but have you seen the trailer for the new Terminator series on Netflix?
I have not, no.
Animated Terminator series.
I mean, it kind of needs to go that way, doesn't it? Because Arnie's old as balls now, so
yeah.
Where do you go next?
I watched the teaser, obviously, and it looks all right. It looks very not quite. If you watch Castlevania, it's very similar. That like Netflix has got its own animation style now. It seems it looks like that, but it looks all right. I mean, I did enjoy Dark Fate for my sins.
You were
yeah, there was a few of us. It was still better than Genesis, but still. But this looks different. It looks different. It looks promising.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it. Terminator Zero
Yeah.
out on the 29th of August. It does have a very Japanesey anime kind of look on the poster for it. I'm so far out of the Terminator loop that I don't know if I need to watch the ones that I haven't seen and all that stuff before giving anything new a try, to be honest. But like the way you talk about some of them, I just don't know if I can be asked. They sound horrendous.
Wait, I'm sure Pricey watched them all day like in the last year or so. And well, that's what Dark Fate did. Dark Fate just ignored everything past 2. Is that, well, here we are. We'll stop this now. We'll go back to when it was good. And it was all right. It was okay. But okay compared to shit in Terminator world it's a fine line.
Yeah, very true. Right, time for number ones. And then my number one is Evil Dead 2. This is the film that I think is probably, like, when it comes to 1 remakes and 2 sequels being better than the originals, this is the film. Realistically, I don't think there's many that come close to it. Plus, it's Sam Raimi. And much like I was saying about Spike Lee before, Sam Raimi is one of those directors who I've just got all the time in the world for. He's able to make a film that I think is very accessible to a very wide audience without sort of crossing over into it being mawkish or being too generic. Like, he's able to write about a specific thing but make it so that it's a universal experience, unlike some of the directors who I think try and make films for everybody and in doing so make films for nobody. I'm thinking of fucking Sean Levy when I'm saying this, to be perfectly honest. Sam Raimi is a good version of that. He can make films for everybody that everybody can take something out of, but it's so specific that what's actually on screen that you recognise it because it's almost a universal truth, which is a weird thing to say about a film, which is about a haunted book. But it is about the love of your friends and how all those things happen in that little hut, so to speak. It's about the community they had going into it and how things went sideways and how people react to it. Like, it's a universal truth that if you were Ash, that is how you would be. That's how you would react to other people. And I think it's just wonderful. Plus, I love Bruce Campbell. I've said many a time that If Chins Could Kill is the best title of any autobiography that I've ever seen. And it's a great book to read. It's really worth it. It's such a good, fun read. So, yeah, Bruce Campbell as well. Fantastic in it. Evil Dead 2 is brilliant. The first one's very, very scary. The second one's scary and funny. And the third one's just funny. To the point that it's probably too comedy. Too much, I think. But 2, it finds the balance between the 2, I think.
I was going to say it's in the kind of Alien to Aliens, Terminator to Terminator 2 vibe where the second film is different enough from the first to not just be a retread, but be better than the first. I think
it's a different genre to the first one.
Yeah,
almost.
Exactly. So I think you can throw them in as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Ed, I'm guessing you probably haven't seen Evil Dead 2.
This is like I know all of the words that you're saying, but I don't know what any of them are. No, not a clue. Until you told me it was about that book, I was guessing this was zombies or something by the time.
Oh well,
it's the undead. Yeah, it's the Necronomicon, so it's the undead. Okay. You would. It's sort of Shaun of the Dead, but not quite as comedy as Shaun of the Dead, but almost. Like Shaun of the Dead has definitely taken a lot of inspiration from Evil Dead 2. So I think you probably would be okay with it. But when the witch is cackling and screaming, I did shit my pants. So maybe it might be a bit much. Yeah, possibly.
In the daytime.
Holding it steady.
Yeah, that's it. Stu, I mean, we've sort of intimated it already, but Stu, your number one, please.
I mean, whenever we talk about this, it's always favourite film of all time, best film of all time. Die Hard always gets mentioned every single time as my number one, and it always has been since I've seen it in probably when I was about 10, 11, and that was obviously the TV edited down version. So Like it seems like every 10 years I get more Die Hard from a film that was made back in this nearly 40 years ago. It's just wonderful. And I've now gone 2 years without watching it, so this year it's back on the rota because I have watched it probably 20 times now. I've been watching it every Christmas and then having a couple of years off here and there. I love it so much. The whole Christmas film, not Christmas film, I don't really care. Like when we talk about the film we're going to talk about in a bit, I didn't realise it was set at Christmas. But it's in November and they've got decorations up and trees. So I'm not really counting that as a Christmas film. That's kind of like when I put my stuff up on the 1st of November. But Die Hard is set when it's set. It's a Christmas party. Don't need to talk about it. It is just excellent in every way. Other than the stop motion, again.
Ed, this was your number 2, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's quintessential action movie. Bruce Willis is incredible, and all what you need in any of these is a good baddie, and you have Anna Rickman being the evil German with the English accent guy. Just it's Nakatomi Plaza is known everywhere because everyone's seen this film. You have the debate on whether it's a Christmas film or not. That's because it's so in the public consciousness that it's just brilliant. And again, one-liners, come to California when he's at the the shoot and all that kind of stuff. And I've got a machine gun now. All of those things. It's just every bit of it is iconic, isn't it? And it's just it's everything you want an action film to be and more. And the ending's incredible. And she still leaves him in the end, the cow. So.
It's my number 3, and it is an excellent film. You're exactly right. Matt always says on this podcast that the hero is only as interesting as the villain. And that's very much what this film is. Alan Rickman, he acts circles around pretty much anyone he's ever been on screen with, let alone in this film. He's just wonderful. And he's camp enough that he just makes it kind of funny as well with it. So there is the humour that comes with his evil bastardness. Just a wonderful, wonderful performance. And it's incredible to think that this was his feature film debut as well. How do you come out of nowhere and be the villain?
At
one of the all-time great villains. At the age that he was no spring chicken. Just comes out and absolutely smashes it. Just an incredible performance. I feel like Bruce Willis has gone on and done... when we started this podcast about Nick Cage, I think that Bruce Willis has had the career that people accuse Nick Cage of having, where he just went and did a load of shit films after having that stellar period. Which isn't true with Nick Cage because he's done some of his best work in the last few years. Whereas Bruce Willis never did. He hit the shit and he sort of stayed there. I think pretty much everything post-2010 is ignorable and instantly forgettable.
Yeah.
And the kind of... Sorry, Stu.
We can, before people moan at us, caveat the last 7-8 years in him doing money because of what's happened to him.
He's well run.
But that doesn't take away all the other nonsense from the years before that, when he was still doing these back of the shot videos that he's in for. What was that one in this? Was it in the Switchgrass with Megan Fox that he did? I actually thought was all right. It wasn't terrible. Well, it was terrible.
Yeah.
It was terrible. But for his recent films and the fact that she was in it being serious, it was enjoyable enough as a waste of time that I forgot the name of it. So I think
I remember it. I can picture the cover of it, but
yeah,
his fall from grace probably came from the fact that he went from TV to film, which is really difficult to do, isn't it? Moonlighting, he was huge in that, wasn't he? And the step up to movies isn't that easy often. I mean, how many Friends movies can you name? Jennifer Aniston does stuff with Adam Sandler on Netflix. She's probably got the most hits, probably, and they're not great. So I wonder if his fall from grace came from the fact that he was kind of the golden boy for a while, wasn't he? That he'd taken this transition from TV to film, smashed it with Die Hard, and all 3 of the original 3 are good. 2's really good and 3's all right. It's pretty decent. It holds up. Again, if it's on, you wouldn't turn it off. It's one of those films, isn't it? For the three.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, he did hit the shits, as you said, Andy.
I think his issue, I mean, I read Kevin Smith's book, is it Talking Shit, I think it's called? Anyway, Kevin Smith's book where he talks about working with Bruce Willis on Cop Out, and he was saying that he was just the most miserable fuck.
Yeah, he's really unlikable, isn't he?
Like, yeah, apparently he's absolutely dreadful, and he spoiled the entire experience of... So Kevin Smith talks about his dad, who'd recently passed away at the time of making that film. Die Hard was his dad's favourite film, so getting to work with Bruce was a dream come true for his dad, and obviously the mixed emotions that came with it. And he just ended up absolutely hating every minute of it. That wasn't when he was working with Tracy Morgan, because Tracy's an absolute legend. And I feel like that Bruce probably got too big for his boots, and I think like he'd lived off the Die Hard fame. Like, I shouldn't be doing these films, I should be directing my own stuff because I'm a big name, and he wasn't. I don't think, especially at that point, I think his career had started to slide. Yeah. What do we think of, how many Die Hard films has there been now? Because I know I've seen 4, and that was the last I bothered with, because that was bad enough. Is this 6? 5 or 6 is this year?
There was the 5th one that was A Good Day to Die Hard in 2013. I'm sure.
Did the 4th one have Shia LaBeouf in it? Am I remembering that right? Or am I getting that mixed up with something else?
I'm thinking of Indiana Jones again.
No, I never thought of that film.
There was Live Free or Die Hard in 2007.
That's 4. That's 4. Yeah.
Because we got that as Die Hard 4.0, didn't we?
Yeah.
I said, yeah. Then A Good Day to Die. What's this, McLean? Are they rebooting it or something?
Yeah, I don't think that's happening now. The
Die Hard Year 1.
A Good Day to Die Hard's with Jai Courtney as his son.
Jai Courtney. Fucking loudmouth prick.
But that was in 2013, and then you look at everything since then. Red 2, I thought Red 2 was all right. The first one's obviously better.
Never got round to. I enjoyed the first one, but never got round to 2.
So, and then I never watched Sin City 2.
It's terrible.
But that was 2013, and that's probably the last one. Looking at IMDb ratings, nothing. Split? Did you? I didn't watch.
Right, yeah.
I never watched it.
Shyamalan. It was not brilliant.
Yeah, so other than that, he's just been doing 5s and 4s and 6s and things like that. But then we found out why. So but still, it's not crazy when
it's not.
You're an actor like that. You think you should have enough money. Midnight in the Switchgrass. That's what it was called.
Yeah, he sort of went on to the Eric Roberts sort of level of work over the last decade of just trying to fit as much crap in as possible.
There he is. He's mentioned. Let's mention it a month.
Right. So, Ed, round it off. Take us home. Your number 1, please.
My number 1 is Rain Man. Rain Man. I think it's on my list. It's the only one that you would call a film rather than a movie, probably, using that definition. Tackling topics that in my head in the 80s weren't tackled, or autism, any kind of special need or extra need, whatever you're allowed to say. And the storyline itself is what you'd expect. It's cocky son meets son that's going to get all of the money and realise he's got issues, hates him, grows to love him, and then they're proper brothers by the end of it. It's not groundbreaking in terms of the basic storyline, but both performances from I think Tom Cruise as well as Dustin Hoffman are incredible. I think it's just tackling something as serious as autism. There's the Mickey taking, there's the count the number of things that get fallen on the floor, all that kind of stuff that is probably what people probably still do, but definitely would have done back then, would have done with people with those kind of special needs. And for the outcome of it to be growth, I think that speaks a lot. And I think that, like we talked about earlier with 80s movies holding up, I think this does. because this could have gone really badly, couldn't it? If it went down the route of constantly taking the piss, and it never has that resolution. I mean, it probably wouldn't have been the film it was, but it could have easily gone down that route, couldn't it? If just the whole thing could have just been pointing a finger at a man with autism rather than showing the differences and showing where they excel, where some people can excel, and the work that you need to put in to understand those people as well. So I think that's what I like in Tom Cruise's performance, is that you believe him at the end, that he says he's going to come back. I'll come and visit you in a week. That's how it ends, isn't it? And you believe him, and you don't have to, but you do. I think it's a wonderful, heartfelt movie, and it's the only one on my list that's an actual film with something behind it, I would say.
Yeah, spot on. I think when we talked about it in the Tom Cruise special, and how this is probably one of his best performances because he's not pissing about or jumping through windows and stuff like that, and he can actually act when he wants to, a bit like Sir Ryan Reynolds. When he wants to, he can, and he can. Andy, we've talked
2 guys in a pizza place was incredible. So don't start.
Van Wilder, he's never beat. Have you seen Van Wilder?
Yeah, of course. I've seen most of his films, annoyingly, because I liked Buried, but the problem is Buried was 15 years, 14 years ago at this point. It was a long time ago, and he's never done anything like approaching that level of acting. So the further we get away from it, the less I believe that he can actually act.
Amityville Horror.
He's still Van Wilder, isn't he? He's still Van Wilder in pretty much everything that he does. That's the annoying thing. It's kind of like how Keanu Reeves is sort of Ted in everything. But the problem is that Ted's a cool character, so he gets away with it. They don't have a lot of range. And I love Keanu, don't get me wrong. I'll watch anything he does, but he doesn't have a lot of range in his performances.
But Tom Cruise does, and in this, he does especially.
Yeah.
Bringing it back to seriousness.
Yeah.
Because it is, I had said, a serious film about serious things at a time when people couldn't give a fuck. And there's reasons why everyone won things for it. Because it's excellent.
Yeah, it's incredible. Whenever you see something that always trends on Twitter about there were no autistic kids, there were no trans cats, there were no gay kids when I was at school in the 80s. I'm like, there definitely fucking was. It's just you were a bully and they wouldn't want to come out and say it. And this film kind of proves that we've lived with people who are different our entire lives and probably not seen it because everyone's just too wrapped up in their own little world. And it's so fantastic to have seen it on screen. And this is a film that I didn't see until a couple of years ago myself. I was absolutely blown away at how incredibly impressive it was. Tom Cruise, I think, is one of the best actors of all time. One of the best superstars, anyway. When it comes to A-listers, a lot of them are quite happy to just keep churning out the shit and taking the money. You look at someone like Tom Cruise's filmography, he'll take a year or 2 years to bring out a film. There aren't many actors who give a film that much time to breathe. Most actors will pump out 2-3 films per year, some even more. Tom Cruise doesn't. He will find a project and he will devote himself to that project for a year. And I feel that this is sort of around that time where that started to change for him. When you look at the stuff prior to that, when you had your Top Gun, Legend, his early days, Risky Business, The Outside, and then he did The Colour of Money with Paul Newman. And from what I've heard, I think that Newman very much took him under his wing and showed him how to not just be an actor, but to be a proper actor. And Tom Cruise has run with that, and he's expanded it out to be more than just what it was to be a Paul Newman. Now you are a Tom Cruise type. And there aren't many like him. And we've said on this podcast before, when we were looking at Tom Cruise doesn't miss with his films. And whilst I didn't particularly love the latest Mission Impossible, because it was half a film, because it is half a film, we've still got the second half to go, he doesn't miss with these movies, and it goes back to the 80s with him. He finds a project that he wants to do, that he's passionate about, and then he gives a performance accordingly. And I think that is just an incredible thing to have as an actor. And to still be 35 years later, still doing it, still giving that level of commitment to a movie. I can see why he's one of the highest earners of all times. and his film's pulling dollars as well off the back of that.
And the fact that you got all the weird Scientology stuff and all these kind of mad theories. And yet he's the face of America when they hand over the Olympics and he's jumping off stuff. Yeah. Why? How is it possible?
I mean, it's the power of Xenu, isn't it? Let's be honest. Scientology's clearly right, and then we're all mugs. But yeah, you are right. Yeah, he's the go-to. He's the face of America, isn't he?
I think I only watched Rain Man. Probably I've watched it 2 or 3 times, and the last time was at least 4 or 5 years ago. And the fact that it's just two characters for a blockbuster film is nuts. You don't really see that very often, where it's just 2 people, often just in the car or in one room in one set piece. It's to just carry that off with just the 2 of them. I think it's an exceptional piece of cinema.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. I mean, we spoke about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we've spoke about 11 or 12 films on this episode. I would argue that the vast majority of those wouldn't get a cinema release today. They would probably end up on Netflix. Or if they were to get a big screen, it would come via A24 or Neon. You wouldn't see someone like Warner Brothers, Universal, pumping the money in that you would need to make a RoboCop, for example. I don't think it would happen in the modern day. These kind of films would be passion projects that people would have to fight to get on screen and would probably be made for, $15, $20 million.
I think probably the closest to RoboCop for that is probably Avatar. And that's only because he's funded it himself.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the history of being James Cameron that he can fund himself. Like any other director who's got that vision, who doesn't have that history, it just doesn't get done.
Yeah.
It's a shame, because these are the films that stick with you for the rest of your life. And you look at the cinema now, and I don't feel like we're getting a lot of those movies year on year. Not ones that, there's nothing that inspirational coming out of the studio system at the moment that isn't from A24. And I do fear that A24 want to go down the franchise route, which I'd be gutted to lose A24 to doing mainstream shit, because they've been the last bastion of good film over the last few years.
Apart from 2, I think, Andy, are they all original IP as well, aren't they? They're not remakes, or there's one of mine,
yeah, so
the 3rd one.
Yeah,
there's your one that's 2,
3.
I think, isn't there? Isn't there?
Indy 3 obviously is a sequel. Beverly Hills Cop 2 and Evil Dead 2, the only sequels. Most of these films have spawned sequels off the back of it, but they were original at the time. And we've seen a number of these have been remade, if not directly, but indirectly, because they've left a mark on cinema. Yeah. Brilliant. Lovely. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break, and then me and Sheil will be back, and we'll be discussing Moonstruck. Ed, thank you so much for coming on and joining us for this chat. I really enjoyed talking about the late 80s cinema. It's been brilliant.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. I loved it.
Super. Anytime. Thank you very much. Welcome back. Moonstruck then. So this is a film from 1987, I think it was. Should have the notes here. Moonstruck. Had you seen this one before, Stu? Because as I said before, I remember the cover of this very much of Cher dancing in a moon on the cover of it, and I had no idea what this film was actually going to be about.
No, never in my life had I seen this. When you said it, and I thought, it's got Cher, I thought, okay, fine, whatever. And I thought, actually, it could be peak Cher era. Certain mermaid-based films around that time. Mm-hmm. And then I put it on, and I looked at IMDb as you do, not the premise, obviously, just to see who was in it, and scrolled down, and it's got a 7.2 on there. I thought, really? A romantic comedy, 7.2. This is going to be something special. And then I put it on, and I really don't know what to say, because I thought it was a farce. I thought it was a complete joke. And and I've no idea why it's so highly rated at all. I mean, I liked it, but I couldn't believe what I was watching. That it seemed like, what was that one, that Cage film was with that stupid name?
Zanderley?
Yeah, Zanderley. It reminded me of Zanderley. And I couldn't get it out of my head then. And I thought, this is going to go one or two ways, isn't it? And I was looking at the reviews there, 9, I'm confused. 7, I didn't get this film until I married a New Yorker. Maybe this is it. Maybe it's not for us. Maybe when you go on your Broadway tour every year, when you do your thing, that it is.
In fairness, there was a few moments I was like, I've been there, because they went to the Lincoln Centre, which I've been, the bit with the fountains. Yeah. That's the Lincoln Centre. I loved it there. Like right next to Juilliard and stuff, so I was in my element.
But it's a lot.
I liked it for those purposes, but yeah.
It's a lot of places that you've seen in other films and played in games and stuff. But I think going in not knowing the premise was probably better, because like when he's there and he's, I thought, is this a piss take as well because of the accents and things? And when he actually said, "What the Mario?" and I thought, it sounds like fucking Mario. He went, what is going on? But is it a joke? Are they mocking Italian Americans? Is this what the point is? No idea. I thought, okay, fine, whatever. And then he's there with Mr. whatever his name is, and he's with a ring, and he gets down on one knee, and he's like, I'll ruin my suit, and it was ridiculous. It was utterly ridiculous. But I thought, okay, fine, I'll stick with it. I'm not. We've got a job to do here. We've got to entertain people. But then. And then he's got his dying Italian mother back in Sicily, which seems like next door.
Oh, yeah. It took you like 20 minutes to get to Sicily, didn't it?
Yeah. In 1987. And then his brother, to be fair, I think Cage was the best thing about this film.
Yeah. Yeah, he was. Like, he was the only one who you could see would have a career as an actor. Watching it, and like weirdly, there was one or two. So the dad from Frasier appears in it as well, which was kind of weird because he looked exactly the same, even though it was a decade before Frasier, where he played an old man. He was exactly the same. He didn't seem to age whatsoever. So there's one or two, but Cage was the only like proper superstar actor in the film. When you watched it, you could see he had a future. But like even some of the stuff that he was doing was a bit bizarre. Like, I don't quite get his character and his obsession with having lost part of his hand. And I suppose you would be obsessed if your brother made you lose, or you believe your brother made you lose part of your hand. But I don't know what that purpose that served to the film.
Yeah.
Like, of all the reasons to fall out with someone, being distracted, like, I don't get it. It was a bit weird.
I think that was kind of in the back of my mind as well, because I kept thinking of it as a brass hand, and then they give it to Mince. And I thought, I can't take this seriously because he didn't look like a fake hand because he kept moving it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just in a glove. I think at least if it was like a gauntlet, like in like Game of Thrones or something, or it was like a stump, or I mean, it's he could have done anything with it, but he just had a glove on.
Yeah,
there was moments in it where I thought, is he one of these phantom people who think their hand's gone and it's actually there's nothing wrong with his hand? When this is how deep I was thinking into it, because I thought it doesn't make any sense because his hand is moving.
Yeah. You thought deeper than the director, I think.
Yeah.
They didn't put that much effort. But like you say, like, it is a 7.2 on IMDb. It is a film that's really liked, which kind of surprised me. Now, I know it's one that's been mentioned a few times because I know that this role led to directors seeing him in this and they're wanting him in their film. I think, was it Raising Arizona? I think he got off the back of this, if I remember correctly, or it might be a different one. So this is a big film in Cage's filmography. And maybe it's just the fact that we're now 37 years late to the party on it. I don't see it. I don't get it. I didn't dislike it. I don't see the importance in watching this movie.
No. Not one bit. It's... I mean, in a week where I've watched Borderlands, like I said earlier, I mean, I still enjoyed it more than that. But Borderlands is probably a better made film, even the one that's been heavily cut. Because there was some like transitions in this that just, it seems so amateur. And I know we're not professionals and I haven't got the keen eye for these things, but even I can see things that are just bodged together. It looked like a TV film at times. Like the lighting was wrong. The sets were obviously like, you know, like in Only Fools and Horses, where they go from the set to outside, and the old BBC cameras that obviously couldn't handle exposure, so it looked different. Like on Fawlty Towers as well, anything from that era.
Yeah.
I mean, if you mentioned Raising Arizona, and that was out in '87, we could have mentioned this earlier in the last hour. Neither of us did.
Yeah, that's true.
It just seemed shit. It looked awful at points. But then others, it looked great. It was a confusing mess.
Yeah. I mean, we'll do the good, bad, and crazy now. My bad is that it is quite confusing. I felt like it really sort of dragged to get anywhere, and then it went somewhere, and then all of a sudden it flew, and then it was over. And I was like, the pacing was really all to cock. It didn't flow nicely at all. It felt quite confusing when it was. I don't feel like the story should be dum, you know, but this wasn't. Was it? Did you know what I mean? Like what I'm trying to say? The pacing just felt so off that I was bored shitless. Then I was interested. And then it was over. And I was just like, I don't know what you've done here, but you haven't built up to a crescendo. You've just sort of fucked around too much and then given us a lot in one go, and that's it. I feel like you could have paced it out a bit better. And I struggled with that quite a bit with this movie. I don't know if I'm being harsh there because I don't know much about Jewison, the director, but looking at his directorship, he's got quite a few films under his belt. So I don't know if it's, again, I don't know if it's just because I'm watching this with 37-year extra on top of it, potentially. So that's my bad. My good, I thought Cher was all right in this, to be honest. Everything else I've seen Cher in, she either plays Cher or she looks like she's reading all of her lines off the script. Well, she's on the script. Like, she looks like she's not an actor. This is the first time I've seen Cher in anything and thought, oh, you actually can act. The problem is then everything else she's done following this, I don't know what happened to her. Why she never quite picked it up again. But I thought she was quite good. She was quite acerbic, and I felt like there was a barbed tongue to the way she spoke to people, which I quite liked. She felt like she was, you know, the stereotype of a Brooklyn New Yorker. So I thought Cher was quite good in this. That surprised me. I wasn't expecting to think that Cher was going to be any good, because the last film I saw her in was Burlesque. I don't know if you've ever seen that one with Christina Aguilera. It's horrendous, and they clearly know nothing about burlesque, because there's no burlesque in the whole thing, but it's called Burlesque. Like, I thought she played a drag queen in it, but I don't think she does. I think they Cher in it. So yeah, Cher I thought was good. And my crazy is going to be, I don't understand how this is such a pivotal film in Cage's filmography, because there's nothing about this film that isn't just fine. Like, it's not brilliant, it's not dreadful. You know, it doesn't fall on the Crazy Cage scale for me. Realistically, it's just a film that he made, and that's it. So I'm kind of surprised how loved it apparently seems to be. I mean, 7.2 after nearly 70,000 reviews on IMDb. So that's a good score. That is for that many reviewers on there.
It's also not that many reviewers considering how old it is.
Potentially.
What's this Rotten Tomatoes score? I never looked at that. Moonstruck. Rotten Tomatoes score is audience 81, 89.
I suppose the thing is with Rotten Tomatoes, you can say it's a 3 out of 5, and that's a positive score.
Yeah.
Rather than, 9 out of 10 people liked it, but that doesn't mean they all thought it was a 10 out of 10 film.
And that's 25,000 plus rating, so you're saying it's 7 or 8 out of 10 over 2 sites. So are we the bad guys mean insert here? It's I mean, my good was his performance, and I like Cher, but not as much as you did. I thought he was great in this, and I thought he was quite funny in points, but I don't know if it was laughing at it rather than with it. like we said about the comedy Italian accents and the over-the-top nonsense of it all. But then the over-the-top nonsense of it all is also not bad because it was almost slapstick, and I don't think it was supposed to be. That whole kind of side plot of her dad having an affair in the same place.
It's weird, wasn't it? That was very weird.
And then her mom was having an affair at the same time, and there was no resolution to any of it all. And the whole thing about, oh, do you love him? No, good on you. What? And then he comes back at the very end.
I did laugh at that.
When he comes back at the end, and she's, oh no, oh yeah, okay. Play the.
She was the Dolmio.
Yeah, she was,
wasn't she?
Yeah. I mean, it's like the Uncle Ben's rice and all that kind of stuff. Every kind of stereotype you could possibly get was in this film, and it's but that is both a good and a bad because I don't know what it was supposed to be. Because every other representation of Brooklyn has not been like this, and maybe there's a point. And what we talked about, do the right thing, literally 20 minutes ago, which seems nailed on perfect and done with heart. When this is just a farce. With the crazy, my crazy was the same as yours. That it's so well loved, and it's so made so much money. When it makes no real sense because the sets are bad, the lighting's wrong, nothing really seems to work properly. It doesn't flow. It looks like it looks like someone's first ever movie, and yet at times it looks professional. But it's almost like when you watch Shaft. If you watch Shaft now, first one, it looks shit. But you understand because it's in the 70s. There's no reason for this to look like it does. And I thought, is this because it's old and it's just a stream of it and whatever? I thought, well, no, because it's still the same. It's not being filmed in a cinema, is it? In the 80s. It's just the way it is. Maybe that's the transfer, but I don't think it is. I think it's just a really badly put together movie on a budget-ish with two rising stars. Well. Cher was probably massive anyway. Well, I don't know. As an actress at that time?
Possibly not as an actor, but like she had been around since the 60s because she was with Sonny Bono, wasn't she? So she would have been known by this point as a musician at least.
Yeah. It's like Gaga, though, eh? I mean, no one really thinks of her as an actress until Folie à Deux later in the year. I'm just baffled with it all. But I don't hate it. I didn't hate it. Oh, yeah. At no point. I mean, this sounds like for the last 18 minutes we've been bashing it, but I actually enjoyed watching it. And it didn't feel too long, and it didn't feel too short. It felt the right length. It just seemed different to what I expected it to be. And I think what it's supposed to be as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I mean, we'll do that now. So, obviously, did you enjoy the film? Yes, you did. I agree. I enjoyed it, not effusively. It was fine. You know, we don't really do scores out of 5, but it's definitely on the positive side. Like I said, it would be a 3 out of 5, I think, just over the midway point. When we do our top 5s, when we come to the end of Cage's career, this is going to be nowhere. Like, it's going to be bang in the middle. It's not the worst. It's not the best. It's just fine. And there's, that's enough to pass the hour. Like I said, like I'm watching Covenant at the moment, and I'd much rather sit through Moonstruck again. in comparison, like it's enjoyable enough, isn't it? So on the scale of good and bad, Cage, good?
Yeah, I thought he was actually really good in this. And you can kind of see if this was why he got Raising Arizona, you can understand because other than the brass band, it seems like a natural progression of that same kind of character. Someone who's a bit out there, is contained in a situation where he doesn't want to be. Yeah, I thought he was good. This is on the good scale.
Yeah, complete agreement. Like the question's just silly at this point because he's good in everything. Even he's just a good actor. We know this at this point, and he's good in this. He gives it exactly what I think he needs to give it. Probably without him, I don't know if I'd enjoy the film. Thinking about it, like, I mean, don't get me wrong, they could get someone in who could be equally as good, but he's the best thing in this film, and I think he drags it to being an enjoyable enough watch to get you through it. a lesser actor, I think this would probably have been consigned to the dustbin of time. So yeah, I think Cage was good in this.
Yeah, if this was Steve Guttenberg, I don't think it would have worked.
No, I agree. I think it needed to be someone who can do comedy but isn't a comedian. And I think, good point. Right then, so the final question, if you enjoyed Moonstruck, you may also like...
Already said it. Go and watch Raising Arizona, it's better.
That's what I've got written down as well, Raising Arizona. I feel like at this point of time, that is Cage's best film, and that's one of the best films of that period of time as well. So, yeah, complete agreement on everything on this one, Stu. Super. Yeah, doesn't happen very often. Lovely. Okay, right. So, next week is going to be the first week of September. We'll be back doing a question cast. We will be watching a film called Dog Eat Dog, which I think is from a little bit later on in Cage's filmography. I will tell you what the blurb is on this one, because I dread to think Dog Eat Dog. So this is Nicolas Cage and Willem Dafoe, which, I mean...
Oh, we don't need to hear anything else. That is...
So yeah, we've got those pair. It's a 4.8 out of 10 on IMDb. A crew of ex-cons are hired by a Cleveland mafioso to kidnap the baby of a rival mobster.
Yes.
So that's going to be... I mean, that does sound interesting. It's got two actors I like in. So even if it's not fun, it should be watchable at least, hopefully. But that's what we'll be doing next week anyway. And then we're going to do the rest of the month. We're going to do a bit of a gangstery kind of things throughout September, and then rounding the month off with the music cast. So that'll be next month on Cage Fighting. Make sure you subscribed on the podcatchers. Socials is at Cage Fighting Pod, and any emails, send them to cagefightingpod@gmail.com. And this week, Stu, would you like to say goodbye?
Goodbye, everyone. Let's go and watch Deadpool and Wolverine if you would like. Fun and enjoying yourself. Do not watch Borderlands. Goodbye.
You know, I'm going to get back into it now. Fuck it. Whenever I see people on Twitter complain about a film, and it's like at the minute it's Deadpool, because obviously that's the most, popular film at the moment. The response is, well, you just don't like fun. Or, well, what's fun about it? Like, I don't quite understand how watching and not enjoying a film means you don't like fun. I don't get that criticism. It's such a bizarre thing to say to someone.
Fun police.
Like, you can still like it all you want. I don't have to like it because you think it's fun. If I don't think something's fun, then it's not fun. It's like something being a comedy. If I think something's funny and you don't think something's funny, we're both right, because that's how it works. So I'd find it such a weird argument to keep having on Twitter.
You're not part of the cool kids brigade if you don't like fun, like that we like.
It is slightly that, but then I'd also argue that that being a cool kid isn't being part of the masses. I think if you're cool, you're very much on the outside of it, rather than just one of the sheeple.
Yeah, being an in-betweener is the best way, as that show and films taught us.
But, I mean, let's be honest, they're very much on the geekier side of things, aren't they? I should watch those films again. I haven't watched them for a while.
Yeah, one of them, the swimming pool one, which was the second one? I can't remember. So,
yes. Yeah, where he pulls his kecks down.
Yeah, that was on ITV2 the other week. Of course it was. It seems like it's a natural home for in-betweeners on ITV2, even though it's 4. I am intrigued how well that translates over there. But it seems a very English thing. So now they have their own, didn't they? And it obviously
Did you ever see it? Did you ever watch any of the episodes? I watched one of them, and it was just like, it was beat for beat as well. Like, they didn't change the scripts; the jokes were the same jokes. At least in this one episode, it didn't work at all. Like, the problem was that people who were playing the 4 boys were like handsome people, handsome normal people, and like, well, the in-betweeners aren't handsome normal people. They're dorks, they're dweebs, they're outsiders to the main. And I don't think American comedy really gets that. I don't think they understand to be an other when it comes to American comedy. And I think that's why it didn't translate.
It's like the Red Dwarf, American Pilot.
Awful. Yeah.
Just doesn't work.
Yeah, like Lister's supposed to be a bum, and obviously Rimmer's a dickhead. And they had two handsome dudes, and like, no, it doesn't work like that. Yeah, it's exactly it.
But I'm guessing that the people in American TV are not. There's nowhere for normal people. They're all chiseled into perfection.
Yeah. I mean, you watch anything that is supposed to be set in high school, and they're all my age. It doesn't make any sense that they're all supposed to be children, but they look like grown-ups. Doesn't work.
Or they end up looking like Erin Moriarty in the state that she got herself in. Silly cow.
Anyway, Stu, you said goodbye, so I will say goodbye now. And remember, be excellent to each other.